Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
This was Trent Reznor doing the music. That lazy son of a bitch. He just grabbed the Smith. It's the Smiths.
It's mostly it's a lot of the Smiths.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched The Killer.
The Killer.
Starring the Fast Bender.
Mm-hmm. The fastest bender in the West.
Stick to your plan. Trust no one. Stick to the plan. Forbid empathy. Stick to the plan. Anticipate. Don't improvise. Stick to your plan.
Yeah. All right. This is on the Netflix.
It is.
And that's also my first note is I'm like, I wish I could have seen this in theaters, David Fincher.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen a David Fincher movie in theaters.
Yeah. Glad you got your Netflix deal. How's that feel? How's that Netflix deal feel? Is it fun for you? Is it fun to not have things in theaters?
That must be kind
director.
of a drag. I mean, on one hand, they give you a ton of money. On the other hand, your stuff almost never like they buried Mank. I had to look for it, and they don't get DVD releases. They just Anyway, so David Fincher's new movie, The Killer, is on Netflix. Is what that all basically means.
But also not anyway, because I want to talk about what this movie means. But first, Tom, how'd you like this movie?
I really liked this movie.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's going to be... I suspect it might end up being a David Fincher movie along the lines of Fight Club, in that I think this movie will be misunderstood by the people it is making fun of.
100%. This is kind of a comedy.
It's
the driest fucking comedy you could ever watch.
I was... It took everything in my being not to text you that the other day, Dave. But like watching the movie, I kept wanting to text you. Like, this is weirdly funny.
Well, so yeah, I remember when I first figured that out, because I was looking at the reviews, and the reviews are basically, it's split between people who sort of just went, "Wow, that's boring, nothing happened," and people who are like, "Oh, this means something, doesn't it?" And I thought about what it meant, and I like it. And I'm not saying that either is necessarily right, because if you're sitting down to watch, like, I saw one review that was like, "It's boring John Wick," and I'm like, it's not John Wick.
It's not John Wick at all.
Yeah. But if you're sitting down, you're like, I'm going to watch a cool action film. No, that's not what you're going to get.
That's not what this is. It's
not at all. This is a drama / dry comedy.
The thing that I allowed myself to text you was that it feels like this is Fincher doing Steven Soderbergh almost.
Yeah. So it is. Yeah, be warned right away. And again, it's like you look at all the other Fincher and you're like, I don't know how you could not. When has Fincher really made like, ooh, I'm just making cool action? I guess that's the people who think Fight Club is that.
Right. It's very, very similar to Fight Club, because it's a main character who talks constantly a lot of bullshit that sounds really good, but the movie continuously undermines him subtly at first, but as the movie goes on, it becomes louder. Until like it becomes obvious that it's bullshit. He has no fucking idea what he's talking about. It's sort of like it's
a joke.
It's when you figure out that Tyler Durden is full of shit in Fight Club.
Exactly. This is, I think, just a lot more. I think this is more direct.
It's more Wile E. Coyote. It's more direct.
Yeah. So like the premise, the first like 20 minutes is this guy setting up an assassination, and you're watching and you're thinking like, ooh, he's really good. He's working out of a abandoned WeWork.
The reason you think he's good is because it's the movie is almost entirely narrated, and he drones on and on and on with all of the tropey shit that you expect like a master assassin to say, like the statistics about death and the statistics about accidents and being
this
prepared.
Many people being born per day.
And it's like all this bullshit. And then you realize that he's overslept. And then he's like, I allow myself to go down the street for some protein. And he gets a fucking Egg McMuffin.
Yeah.
Like there's little things early on that he's an asshole. But ultimately what happens, the inciting incident is that he fucks up. He fucks up the job he's on and shoots the wrong person.
Yeah, the whole thing is leading up into building him up in his own mind, basically. Yeah. His narration is about how good he is.
He's self-mythologizing.
Yeah, and then he fucks up the shot. And that was the moment I burst into laughter. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, this is a comedy.
Right.
Got it.
And he almost gets busted just by, like, somebody coming in and dropping off the mail in this WeWork.
Yeah.
It's, like, he talks all this shit, and he even says, I'm not exceptional. But, like, in a way that you're like, okay. Like in a humble braggy type way when he really, you can tell he really does think he's exceptional. But and then it's all building him screwing this up spectacularly. And then from this moment on, for the rest of the movie, every single time he tries to do a cool hitman thing that you've seen in the movies, he fucks it up beyond repair. He
keeps getting messier and messier.
Yeah.
Is the
He's
idea.
on tilt, and he keeps getting further and further on tilt and making bigger and bigger mistakes.
Right. Because the whole movie is basically this idea of a hitman who fucks up a job, and then they try to kill him, and they end up assaulting his wife, girlfriend. They don't say, and I kind of appreciate how little the movie tells you, because it doesn't really...
She's his, like... She is at least one of his partners. Like, it's definitely, that's where he goes to this house in the Dominican Republic to hide out, and he has this woman there, and they're clearly in a relationship, and she sort of keeps the house for him.
But again, they don't need to tell us much, you know? And I like that. You just know, oh, this is personal. And so he goes to, like, his boss, essentially, his handler, and he kills him and gets information from his, like,
the way he kills
assistant.
him, Dave.
With a nail gun.
Well, he does this thing. It's another way he's trying to do a John Wick thing. He shoots him he shoots him across the collarbone 3 times with a nail, and he's like, "Okay, you have about 3.5 minutes before you drown in your own blood. So you can either tell me what I want to know, and I'll let you." And he like dials 911 and puts the phone on the desk in front of him. He's like, "I'll let you hit send if you tell me what I want to know, but the clock is ticking. You only have a couple of minutes before you drown in your." Oh fuck, he's dead. Like, he tried to do this cool, badass John Wick thing, like, you know, when he stabs Common, and he's like, you can either pull the knife out or leave it in and go to the hospital. But he fucks it up and just kills, like, the guy dies immediately.
The guy died. So he then has to, like, bring the body out with his assistant and then just get the information from her and then kill her.
Takes her to her house.
Yeah. And the whole thing, he keeps talking about how meticulous he is and how leave no trace.
Right.
He says never improvise, always anticipate. And then he just slowly, again, he's like, don't give a fuck. Nothing's personal, take no sides or stuff. And then it's slowly like he's doing this because he's been personally slighted. So like the entire thing is personal, and he keeps telling himself, don't get personal.
And the thing
while
is,
he's doing this thing.
He's been personally slighted, but it's not even like that bad. Like, They beat up his girlfriend, but she's basically okay.
I was thinking the same thing, which I was like, at the beginning, I'm like, oh, that is bad. But then,
she also
like, the
fucked
amount
one of them up, like they treat it in a way that's really interesting to me. That is It's like a continual exploration of the theme. Where they only have like a couple of brief scenes together, but like she's like, you would have been so proud of me. I was strong. I stabbed the hell out of that guy when they were. I didn't tell him anything. She's like so proud that she got her ass beat, and like she has this huge scar across her face, and she's like, how bad is it? Never mind, don't tell me. I'll see soon enough. But she's not like upset about it. She's excited that she got to fuck some dude up exactly like Fassbender taught her. So it's like, we're seeing that the relation, like, he's a scumbag. Like, we shouldn't feel good about that. Like, we shouldn't feel righteous about his pursuit of revenge, I guess, because like he has done infinitely more to put her in harm's way.
What they immediately start doing is having him kill innocent people.
Yes.
And that's when you realize, like, oh, okay, this isn't worth his... Like, because he kills a cab driver who's very clearly not going to say anything.
No.
Same with the assistant. She's very clearly... She knows her occupational hazard. Like, it's very clear she knows that she's like, I'm not getting out of this.
The secretary of a guy who, like, books assassinations. Like, she knows she's in the criminal... And, like... The cab driver is just some like, he's overheard criminal shit.
He's just some kid.
Like, I've been a delivery driver before and have witnessed crimes. I had no interest in telling anybody about them. I'm just like, look, I'm just trying to live my life and do my job. That's it.
And again, it gets increasingly messier because he goes to the cab place and he doesn't kill the guy there and he makes it look like a robbery. And you're like, okay, all right, he's doing stuff. And then just slowly, like, when he kills the cab driver, he just takes his radio. And it's like, well, nobody's going to think that's why he was shot, but right, like it gets
well.
worse.
He already took his. He takes his wallet too,
I guess. Yeah,
but you're right. It goes downhill from there, where he stops
when he kills the guy in Florida and just fucking blows his house up, just lights it on fire. And I was like, okay, now you're getting extremely.
He couldn't drug
messy.
the dog. Like the dog was not interested in eating the drugged meat. He was trying to feed the dog.
And again, everything seems so meticulous, and then it keeps going wrong in very funny ways where it's like ultimately what it's kind of also saying is like he's a dipshit obviously, but also just like you can't plan for this shit as much as he tells himself. You can't plan for your own emotions, you can't plan for random circumstances.
What I like that what it's doing is it's a deconstruction, right, of the myth of the John Wick, of like the cool assassin. Like that's why it's a boring John Wick is so funny, because the point of the movie is it's anti John Wick. The point of the movie is John Wick does not exist. And even this guy doesn't exist. Like
even this guy is too cool to be a hitman.
He's still too cool to be a real life hit. Like the best, I think we mentioned it on the episode, but the best depiction of real life assassins I've ever seen is in House of Gucci. It's just two guys in their 50s with huge guts that walk up to him on the street and just blow him away.
Right. And like, I feel like the average hitman, like, it'd probably be shocking how much they make per kit.
It's
probably
like $50,000. Yeah, it's not a lot of money to murder somebody.
It's like there. So that's sort of the idea, is he's even LARPing. I mean, there's this implication that in this world the hitmen are cooler because he meets Tilda Swinton and she's also like, she's clearly better than him.
Yes, she is.
Yeah.
To the point where I thought she had killed him. Like when she orders her bottle, she tells them, bring me my bottle. And she doesn't drink out of it, but he does. That's the first time he actually takes a drink at the table. I thought, she's got him. That was poison.
Oh, yeah. So like, it's clear that he's like he's fine. he's not the worst hitman. That's what makes it like subtly funny, and it's just
right. He's as blue collar of a hitman as not even that's not right, but like
they're showing stuff like, I think this is part of it because I think people were noting the product placement in this movie, and there is a lot, and I'm guessing they made some money from it. I'm guessing Netflix was very happy. There was product placement, but it doesn't feel unearned because it kind of points out how mundane.
It's phony.
Like,
it's all about.
Yes.
It's
phony.
He's very explicitly and specifically posted up in a WeWork, and WeWork was like vaporware basically, but it was one of those tech projects that got people really excited and got a lot of money, and then there was nothing to it, and it just collapsed because what was the concept? And it's all in the tech industry. Like the guy who he's ultimately after is a tech billionaire, and it's like the perfect metaphor for this, where it's all the facade. But the actual substance is either non-existent or much, much less glamorous than what they're making it out to be. So it's perfect.
I think the product placement, the fact that they leaned into tech stuff, it dates the film, and I think that's on purpose. Mm-hmm. I think it takes the piss out of the film a little bit, because if the film was timeless, it would be more like a mythology of this man. And then the fact that like when he has to like copy the fob for the house,
orders it from Amazon.
He just buys. Yeah, he just gets the thing on Amazon, and you're like, oh.
And it shows up in one of the it's so that the product placement also is 100% what you were talking about, the mundanity of it. It's not like he's not sitting there and like using skills he learned in some secret school in the fucking Russian mountains about being a spy, about spycraft. He just ordered a fucking gadget on Amazon.
Right.
Like any dipshit can do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I am almost certain this is all on purpose for Fincher, because Fincher is a very meticulous man.
Yes.
You could say that he probably thinks of himself as like this assassin, very meticulous, which is the other layer of this. I'm almost certain this movie is about being a director to some extent.
It's
almost
not
certain
about
this
that.
is about
There's certainly that element
about
in there.
bureaucracy, because the whole movie is him basically. He gets slighted because he fucks up this job, and
he gets burned by a guy who doesn't even really understand that he's burned him.
Exactly, because the whole thing is him fighting to get to this one client, and he's killing his way through. And his client is the guy who got eaten by a T-Rex in Jurassic Park, The Lost World. It's
Is it Richard Schiff?
It's Peter Ludlow. That's the
Oh
character.
no, it's Arliss Howard. That's right. That's who it was.
Yeah.
They're talking about Richard Schiff. I was like, that was definitely not Richard Schiff.
No, that's not Richard Schiff. No, it's John Hammond's.
Yeah, Peter Ludlow. You're right.
Nephew, I want to say,
Nephew,
or son.
yeah, nephew.
I don't know. I looked it up and I was like, really? Because I thought he was I thought he was like 60 in Jurassic Park, but
No, he's a young.
I don't
he's
know
a
why
young
I thought
man in the
that.
Lost World.
He's
Anyway.
a young guy. But so he gets to the client's place, and you're assuming what's going to happen is he's going to kill this guy. He's killed everybody else, like he's killed the middlemen, and the middlemen are just doing their job. And so like there's this question of like what accountability, who's accountable for it all. And when he gets to the client is just completely clueless. He's like, oh. They told me that the assassination got fucked up, and they asked if I wanted insurance for like an extra $150K. So I said, yeah, that sounds good. I didn't know what it meant. And so you realize that this whole ordeal was because one rich guy was like getting basically like got extra space on his, like the equivalent of getting like even more space on JetBlue.
Right,
you know?
he got upsold.
Yeah, exactly, and that's it.
They basically told him. He said what he says is, well, I asked, well, what normally happens in a situation like this, and Fassbender's handler tells him, well, for an additional fee, we can clean it up, eliminate any trace so that it doesn't get back to you. And he's like, fine, let's do that.
Yeah. And that's it. And so Fassbender doesn't kill him.
No, it's funny. He walks in and he just says, do we have a problem?
Right. Which is very funny. It's almost a punchline of the whole killing thing. This killing spree to get to one guy and be like, hey, what's your deal?
Right. It's the joke that Scott Glenn tells in Training Day, right? He spends 2 hours fighting through all these people to get to the end and just to ask this guy, the fuck's your problem?
Yeah, exactly. It's real good. And he explains it to him that he didn't know, and Fassbender's like, all right, well, if I ever think you're trying to kill me, I'm gonna kill you, and leaves, and that's it. And so like this guy is, and you think about it as like this guy is so rich, he's probably, Fassbender is at least very smartly realizing like, I can't kill this guy, it's very high profile. I'm on camera. Like he notices that he's on camera. He's again being very loud about everything. Mm-hmm. And then he retires. The end is him just retiring, just going back to South America and sitting by the pool. And so I can't help but to think about like Fincher being a man who is so meticulous in how he makes movies, and this idea of like you fuck up once and they throw you to the wolves, right? Like you fuck up once and they come for you.
They force you into retirement.
Yep, and it's just ultimately the decision of some rich guy who's not even thinking about the lives that they're affecting. Mm-hmm. So like I think there's an element there of like
there's an for sure. for sure.
Yeah, Fincher's frustration of like who really holds the power, the corporate world, and specifically the idea of a single like artist being affected by it. But then by making the killer also like not great, I think that helps because it's not him trying to tell everybody I'm amazing.
In a broader context, it's just like how it could be viewed as just how our lives are so often based on the whims of these dipshits, right? Like Fassbender is not a person that exists, but Arliss Howard's character certainly does.
Right. And I think it really helps that you put that on top of making Fassbender's character kind of a
dipshit. Yeah. It's an ass.
He's using his aliases are all
they're all sitcom character names. They're so obviously aliases. Like
exactly. At first you're like, oh, that's a cute because I forget what the first alias is
Felix Unger.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, so you're trying to say he's the fool to some extent here. And then like you realize like, oh, that's just what he's doing. And you're like, wow, that's so fucking obvious.
Yeah, it's real dumb.
When he's his bank is tied to George Jefferson, and it's like, wow, if you were a cop, you could trace this immediately. Mm-hmm. I love that shit.
I think it's interesting to have his ultimate thing be a tech bro because like we said, we were saying earlier, all the reasons why the tech industry is so apt for this. He is basically just a tech billionaire to an extent, right? He's not dissimilar from Edward Norton in The Glass Onion. Fassbender is. Because like
Fassbender, yeah,
he's a big hypocrite. Like he goes against everything he says. Eventually, at some point in the film, he violates every single rule he lays out.
Oh yeah,
there are points where he's narrating, and getting really into the self-mythologizing of this world that he exists in. But we're seeing the opposite play out on screen, so it's like a Chuck Jones cartoon at some point.
Yeah. I'd say one of the most telling things. I first noted this when he's doing the assassination. He's putting in earphones. So I was like, I don't think you should put in earphones as an assassin. Like that's a bad idea, right? But it's the fact that he keeps talking to himself as like, I'm a robot, I'm emotionless, and he's listening to nothing but the Smiths.
He's listening to Morrissey.
So fucking emotional. And that was that's one of the biggest like hints of this guy is just like, yeah, everything he says about himself is a fucking lie, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Or there's almost everything. Like we should note, he's not a complete buffoon. He knows how to fight. He knows how to do these things. But like, it's sort of about that idea of like just he's skilled, but that doesn't make him like incredible.
No,
like that doesn't mean he's smart. You know what I mean?
No,
like
and
just because he knows how to fight. Yeah, exactly.
He's not very
doesn't
smart.
mean he's like particularly clever.
He does some of the. I mean, he has clever ideas, but like I don't know.
Well, no, he has. Again, I think that's why it's. I think a lot of people might. That's why I really do think this is intentionally. It's based off a comic book, and I haven't read the comic book. But like it really does feel intentional, but it's subtle enough that it's like you could go into it thinking like, oh, do they know? But I think they know to some extent. They must. They know what they're doing. I think to the full extent because like right away, listening to the Smiths while talking about how he's got to, not give a fuck and not have any ties. Mm-hmm. And it's so like, and then of course I'm immediately missing it. And then the fact that what he does is it's somewhat clever, but it's all stuff you sort of.
He's doing all the the tropey things. And it's like,
exactly.
He sneaks into places by just waiting for delivery men to go inside. So he can walk inside the door.
Throwing the dog meat that's tainted, or throwing body parts in like off a ferry. Like they all seem like it's like, okay, that's kind of neat. Like I like watching these details, how meticulous he's being. Like they're presenting it all of like, here's all the steps, but nothing he's doing is extremely like, I'm like, wow, I never thought to do that.
Right.
It's all just
he's doing all the expected things. He does say at one point, you can't possibly think of everything. Like he does make this point. There are a few points in the narration where he does say true things, and
it's
that's
it's
one
all
thing.
to say, like, I think what it is that he's not. It's not that he's a buffoon. It's that he's no different than us. Like, if I were an assassin, this is the best case scenario, right? Best case. I don't think I'd be this good of an assassin, but you know what I mean? Like, he's average. He's really average.
It's demystifying it. He's just some asshole.
Right.
He has no special knowledge. He has no special skill. He just knows he has learned which details are the most important.
I was half expecting it to sort of end with him just getting arrested for everything. Just like
no, I think it has to. It has to end with him retiring. Because the whole idea is if we're continuing with like the tech industry metaphor and stuff, it's this rewarding mediocrity and rewarding the smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, you're right. And again, like, people are going to watch this film and expect it to be like funny, and it is kind of funny.
It's quietly
but it's
funny. It's like subtly
it's all
funny.
done. It's one of the most subtly funny movies, and it's mostly presented like a thriller, and it's very well done in that regard. I saw comparisons to Hitman, which I don't quite agree with, but the beginning does feel very like the credits. You're just like, no shit. Like they throw you into the film
real fast. Yeah, the credits are really interesting, actually.
Yeah, they're really cool. And then the way it's shot is just it's shot like Fincher. You know, like it's I guess a little more subdued side of Fincher. Like it's not Panic Room Fincher. It's more
it's very
late stage Fincher. I guess Fincher used to be louder.
He's never. I mean, I don't want to say he's never been loud because he is pretty loud.
Fight Club
is pretty
loud.
Fucking loud. But like, he's not like a Tarantino, so it's not usually. He's not known for getting in his own way. At least in terms of style.
Yeah, I think he's really calmed down later. But like, then you look at like Alien 3, bad example, but that one doesn't feel that Fincher either. So he knows when to be loud and when not to. I guess.
Yeah, Fight Club is loud very purposefully.
Yeah, this starts loud, but then it's mostly pretty subdued.
It starts loud again. It starts loud. It's the smoke and mirrors. It puts up the real like, this is a hitman, cool assassin front.
Yeah,
and then immediately as you're into it, it all goes away and it just becomes very straightforward.
Yeah,
like, it's very mundane.
Yeah, you're right.
The
credits
mundane,
are almost a joke.
Right, like, and it's the credits go right into it. They slam you into. It feels like 15 minutes. This first scene before he finally fucks up the first assassination.
I thought it was like 20.
It might even be 20. Where it's just his narration building this dude up, and it's just building him up and up and up, and then he just for him to fuck up.
Fuck up in a very obvious way too, where you're watching and there's this sex worker, this like BDSM lady who's there with the guy he's supposed to kill, and she's walking in front of him constantly, and you're sitting there like, come on, take the shot, and in your mind you're like, he's gonna perfectly nail it, isn't he? Like that's what they're teasing this, like, oh she's in front of him, oh she's not, where you assume like, oh he's gonna thread the needle, and then he doesn't.
Nope.
He shoots her instead, like in the leg.
Like right through the side. It's like blasts right. Yeah. Either way, he does not hit the guy.
No. And then he just books it. And he gets away, and he's nervous the whole time. And you can see that where you're like, oh, he's scared. And like
he's like shitting himself.
It's just completely deadpan is all. So like it's doing all the tropes in the moment. Where it's like when he does his getaway, he gets on a bike. He's like Jason Bourne. He's like going down these. He throws away the stuff, and it seems very meticulous, like because he probably planned, like, oh yeah, this is where I'm gonna, he's doing what he would do if he successfully took the shot.
He already knew he was going to have to make. He goes over that in his narration where he says, like, when you shoot a sniper assassination like this, is the only advantage you have is distance, because everything else, the noise, the obviousness, the publicness of it, you have to make a quick escape. So he already knew he was going to have to flee. So it's so we are assuming this is just his route, but yeah, it's He is shitting bricks the entire time.
Yeah, you can tell he's so fucking nervous about it.
There's so
and
many-
then he's paranoid on the entire flight home.
Yeah, he's looking at this guy because he has distinct socks.
Yeah.
The most obvious the movie becomes is there, I think, 3 different moments in the movie where the Chuck Jones aspect of the narration being at odds with what's actually happening on screen comes to a head. So there's 3 different times in the movie where he's narrating the how awesome and cool this process is, but he fucks it up and he interrupts the narration by saying on screen, fuck. And that happens 3 times. So that's as obvious as the movie gets. This is supposed to be funny. But I think I think it does it enough that I think you'll get it. I think most people will get that this is just really
so
dry.
deadpan.
Yeah.
It's like when Jason was talking about the movie Tar as being like one big lead up to a punchline.
Yeah. I haven't seen it yet. I need to.
I won't spoil it for anybody, but it's sort of like that, but it's not like laugh out loud. The whole thing is very, it's not. It's an entire drama. It's like dry humor, and not even like NPR dry, but like just like. I don't know. I love this. I love movies doing this because not many movies do this where it's not really a troll. Like it's not like, oh, this was all for nothing. And the ending still says something. And it's the same with this, which is like, I think he's still saying something about,
Yeah.
How power trickles down and the mediocrity of it all and the bureaucracy rather of it all. And
how
like
power and money protects stupid oafs who are aren't even mostly ignorant to the destruction they cause.
Yeah, exactly. And you can do that and still have kind of this sort of dry, like comical tone throughout where it doesn't feel like the point of the movie that he's not particularly great. It's like an added little, like you could do this same movie with the same point and make him like a really good killer, Like you could do that. But I don't think it would be as fun and effective. Like that's the thing is when you watch this movie, like,
I don't think the point lands as hard.
I was so entertained by this movie. And at the end I was like, why? Nothing happened. Why was I so entertained by this movie? And kind of this is why, because like it's like you're watching him and you again, he's not doing anything particularly complex. So you're kind of in his shoes like, oh God, is he going to get through this? Like everything he's sort of struggling the whole time.
He really is. Part of it I think it's really well written. The screenplay is by Andrew Kevin Walker. I think it's the first time he and Fincher are collaborating since I want to say Panic Room or was the game?
He do 7?
He did 7 and he did the game. I can't remember if he did Panic Room or not. Anyway, they've collaborated before. He's a good screenplay writer. All the bullshit that Fassbender does, even though it's fascinating, and it becomes more fascinating the more you realize that he's talking out of it. He's whistling through his asshole.
Yeah.
So I think that's a part of what helps keep it entertaining because there isn't much action in it, but it's so like it's performed well. There's not a lot of like well-known actors in it. It's pretty much just Fassbender and then Tilda Swinton at the end. Oh, and Arliss Howard's not like super famous.
No, Tilda Swinton is very important because I saw her in the credits when they're like, find this person, they look like a Q-tip. I'm like, oh,
there she is. Yep.
Yeah. And then she has a very important scene where she just has dinner with him.
It's a great scene.
Yeah, he sits down across from her and she immediately knows like, oh, he's going to kill me.
Yep.
I know who this is. I know what they're here to do. And she's like surprised. He's in the middle of a restaurant and he's completely lost all control at this point because he's just sitting across from her at a restaurant.
She calls him out for it.
Yeah, and she's just so sloppy. They sit and they just chat at this restaurant while she drinks whiskey because she's like, she knows, okay, I'm going to die in the next, 30 minutes or so.
By the end of the hour.
Yeah. So I'm going to just drink some whiskey and maybe I'll get some dessert. Like, it's a great bit.
Yeah. Going hog wild
she's
tonight.
a pro. Yeah, she knows her chances are slim. She still tries to kill him.
She does, and it may have worked because she plays on your sympathy and gives him this very poignant speech about like when your time comes, and it will eventually come. Because you're going to step in it. You've probably already stepped in it a few times. Like she points out, look, it's no different from any other job that you've been on. You have shot innocent people before too, have you not? And we know he has. We've seen him do it in this movie. And she's like, it's not personal. It was never personal. I didn't even like that guy that did most of it. And I'm glad you killed him first, by the way. He sucked. Yeah. So like, and then she says, when your time comes, you will think of me and my face. You will think of this conversation we had. So she has this like great scene with him, and this poignant like end of life reflection on what their life is, the path that they've chosen to do this. And she slips as he's leading her down to the riverbank to kill her, and she reaches out, it's like, could you help me up? And that's when he kills her. He shoots her in the head, and then the reveal is she had a knife in her other hand and would have stabbed him if he went to help her up. So I think that's the one. It's the only moment where I think it's one of the only moments we see him genuinely outsmart somebody. Because the rest of the times, it's either he's just more lucky or he's more savage.
Or he's an idiot. Remember, he nail guns the guy's computer, by the way.
He does.
And he's like, I want the names. And he's like, it was in the computer. They were in the computer
that you destroyed.
Tilda Swinton also tells a dirty joke that I've heard a million times from like, the
bear joke
from Boston. Yeah.
I'd never heard that joke before.
Oh, okay. It's such a like, fishing with your uncle joke. Yeah. Like, it's such a dude joke.
It's a dude's bonding joke, yeah.
Yeah, I only point it out because Tilda Swinton classes it up so much. It's Tilda Swinton telling a joke about a hunter going to the woods trying to kill a bear, and the bear says, listen, you didn't get me. I'll either kill you or sodomy. And then the hunter keeps coming back, and then it ends with the bear going, you're not here just to hunt, are you?
You're not,
and like that's it's like a classic shitty joke.
It's a fucking Playboy joke. Like it's a Maxim magazine joke. Yeah.
It's so funny to watch Tilda Swinton tell it in this long, like she's telling a very like important story, and telling it so elegantly. That was a great idea.
She's telling it the way that a Shakespearean actor would tell a joke.
Yeah. It was so good.
Makes a meal
so
of
fucking
it.
good.
Yeah. It's a great scene.
It is a great scene. Yeah, I'm trying to think again. Like, he's not a full buffoon. It's more that it's just like
he actually he actually does outsmart her in this scene by following his own directions. No empathy.
It's again that he's average. Like so.
Right.
So John Wick. I love John Wick. Right. But at no point in John Wick.
No, John Wick's Superman.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're never like, oh my God, is this? There's no tension. And what Fincher very.
I disagree, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
the tension.
John Wick's not the best example. We brought it up.
He's constantly getting his ass beat, but we're pretty sure he's going to win in the end.
Yes, there's better examples. Obviously, the superhero genre is a problem for this as well, where you're like, where you're like, well, they're never gonna, they're always gonna win. What's the point? There's other movies that are good examples
like
of
a Seagal movie,
the plot
where he's never in trouble.
Plot armor. Yeah, the plot armor around these characters sometimes because of the actor's own vanity, and so like very smartly, it's way better when it's just like an average Joe. Like that's really it. Like it's. You're constantly wondering like, how is he going to get out of this? Is he going to get out of this?
We have no idea.
The movie feels by making him fuck up the first shot, the movie kind of you immediately go like, oh, I'm not sure what direction this is going to go in, and so like you truly don't know.
It seems like anyone. It's almost like watching somebody have a bad streak of rolls at D&D because it's like any one of his actions. Eventually, it seems like it has like a 50-50 shot as the movie progresses.
And it's like, I don't think he's going to die, but like he could go to prison in this film. He could get fucked up. Like you just don't, like he could die by the end. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But like, and so like by making him just like so fucking vulnerable to mistakes. I think that's why it's like you're watching him do like fairly, again, I don't want to say mundane, but like for a thriller action, there's not much to it. He just keeps going to places to kill these people. But I was on the seat, edge of my seat the whole time. I love the fight where he fucking breaks into the Florida guy's house is great. It's so well shot,
and it's it really is.
And it's like he does silhouettes, which helps really well when you probably need stuntmen to do the scene.
Yeah,
but it's also like it's so like. Again, it's so rough.
It's messy.
Like they're not
it's
kung fu-ing,
yeah, it's
kung fu-ing each other.
And
yeah.
it's one of the funniest. I think it's almost the climax of his mistakes, right? Because this is him literally coming in to like he's knocked out the dog with drugs and he's creeping inside to assassinate this guy like a shadow, and then all of a sudden he's getting tackled by the guy, and now it's a fight.
He gets bodied.
Yeah. They're fighting for like 8 minutes.
And his blood is now on the ground.
So
like he knows.
I was thinking there's a moment in Get Shorty. Okay, follow me. Where they're beating the bad guy. The bad guys are beating up Travolta, right? And the idea is they're gonna push him over the balcony to make it look like he fell. But one of the bad guys is beating Travolta up too much. So the other bad guy is like, if you keep hitting him, it's not going to look like he fell. It's going to look like somebody beat him up and then threw him over the edge. Right. So like this, like as he leaves, I think he like, I forget, he firebombs it. I think he may have done something, but like, there's no effort to cover up that this was just, he broke into this man's house, savagely attacked him and killed him. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
This guy was beaten, stabbed, and shot, and then his house was burned down.
And then that's why he's like, all right, fuck it, burn down the house.
Yep.
Because there's really nothing else I can do here.
There's nothing else he can do. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that contrast with like, the assistant, he breaks her neck and throws her down the stairs, which is like her request. She was like, I don't get insurance.
I can't disappear. Yeah, she's like, my kids need my life insurance. So he breaks her neck at the top of the steps, so it makes it look like she fell down. There are moments, like we're saying, where
you're like, he's skilled. He knows how to do things.
Yeah.
I do believe he's done a lot of assassinations, like he says in the beginning.
Oh yeah, we have no reason to doubt he's inflating like his numbers. It's just like the way he talks about what he does is making it sound so glamorous, and it's just, it really isn't. All he had to do for his big Paris job was just be awake at the right time. Like he's in a building across the street with a perfect view of the room he needs to shoot into. He just needs to be there at the right time. That's it. But he's making it sound like I spend hours casing the joint and eating Egg McMuffins and sleeping on this platform.
Right.
No, just shoot
and
him.
Again, I think that just plays into David Fincher, where it's like, he is a meticulous director, right? He is, he makes these movies that feel very like...
That's the whole... infamously does dozens and dozens of takes sometimes.
Yeah. And his movies have this, I don't want to say robotic feel. I've always heard it as described as like omnipresent, where it's like the camera is an entity. It's not like, he rarely does handheld shots. He's very much about... like, I don't know, this very like
the authority,
mechanical way of
the
presenting.
Authority of it. Yeah.
And so like it is his style, but like but he's human, right? And without that humanity, like you can't deny that humanity, obviously, in what you do. And I just think he's taking the piss out of himself a little bit, where it's like it's not like he's perfect. Like he can make a shitty film.
He is a perfectionist, but he is not perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's what's kind of happening here. Yeah. Is like that idea that this character wants to be seen as perfect. And it's like, no, you're emotional. You're fucking up constantly. You're oversleeping.
You're on tilt.
You're making... Yeah, exactly. And you have to... It's that attitude. And, where like, and I think we've all experienced this type of person where they're terrified of being humble, where anytime they make a mistake, they roll with it. They yes and it, And it's like, no, you can say like, oh, I fucked up. That's actually better. Let's actually people appreciate that. So it's that attitude of like he doesn't make mistakes, and it's like he's perpetually making mistakes in this movie.
It's most of what he does. is trip over his own dick.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean he's bad at what he does.
No,
it's just that
he has
it's
a
this
shocking
hubris.
success rate.
Yeah, it's sort of about someone's sort of hubris getting the better of him. He sort of says at a certain point, or he says at the beginning a lot, that patience is the biggest like issue with the job.
He
right?
does,
Like it honestly reminds me of like when you play a video game and you have to do a stealth mission and you keep dying, and then on the like fourth time you're just running in and you're like, I just want to get through the level. That's kind of what's happening, is he's losing that patience, which he immediately he says is the most important thing at the beginning.
Right.
And you can tell he's just done.
I was actually I didn't say it, but earlier I was thinking of a football analogy, Dave. When he takes the shot, It's like when you watch somebody throw an interception. Like it's basically you're trying to force something to happen now because you're getting impatient. And you're trying to force something, so that's when you make a mistake. Yeah,
you used on tilt before, which is, I know it as a poker term, and I'm sure I've explained it on a podcast. I'm sure people know what it means.
Yeah.
But it's the perfect explanation, because it's when you're playing poker, and the idea the way you're supposed to play poker is very patiently. You bluff, you wait for good hands, you calculate pot odds, you know when to go in, but you fold a lot. You mostly fold when you play poker if you're playing it well. Like if you're playing it to win, like money, on a mathematical level. And being on tilt is when you when you like an hour passes and you haven't gotten anything. You haven't even gotten jacks, like it's just all fucking shit cards the whole night. Yep. And you're just like, I just want to do something. And you're watching your pot just slowly bleed because of the blinds going around. So you're just bleeding money the whole time. And then you're like, you get
bad
like
hands.
Right, then you get like 10-9 and you're like, I'm all in.
Yep.
And that's being on tilt, where it's like you're not getting a good hand, but you're so sick of not doing anything that you're like, fuck it. And that is the whole feeling of
exactly what he does.
Yeah. It's perfect. It's a perfect analogy for this motherfucker. And again, it's so subtle that I can see, like, watching this movie and not noticing or thinking that it's like the writing, where it's like, oh, this is dumb. And it's like, yeah, I think it's supposed to be. I think he's supposed to be kind of dumb.
He's supposed to be a fucking knucklehead.
I think what makes it tricky is that he's not always dumb. So like there's stuff in it that feels like it's on the level of like what you'd see in any, like him, he gets the storage lockers, and he goes in and he puts his car in there and he switches license plates, and he's washing the vans and he's doing all the stuff.
It's less that he's dumb. It's more that he's not a genius.
Right.
He's not Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter doesn't exist.
Yeah, and there's this meta aspect that I kind of wish they had pointed out, but I get why, where it's like he's renting all these cars and he's doing all this stuff, and I couldn't help but think, like, this is a gigantic paper trail. Like, it's hard.
His multiple identities presumably help with that, but like...
Yeah, but they're all so obvious.
Yes.
So I was expecting that to, like... I was really expecting him to just get arrested. Like real, like, unceremoniously arrested or something. But I get what you said, where it's like, yeah, he sort of has to just retire at the end. That makes sense for his character. And it's more pleasant,
It's also funny because, like, that's exactly what his handler says to him. He's like, I can't believe you're not just retired. He's like, I don't understand why you're pursuing. He's like, well, because he points out everything.
It's the bear joke. It's the bear joke.
It's the bear joke.
He keeps coming back to get punched in the taint every time.
He's on tilt. Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Yeah.
He can't let it go. And his handler is like, you could have taken any one of the, I assume, hundreds of identities you have. You've made more money than you can ever spend. Your girlfriend, she got beat up, but she's fine. Like, I don't understand why you guys haven't disappeared to the far side of the world by now, is what he tells them.
It's sort of a similar moral as something like Old Boy, where it's actually not being like, look how cool revenge is. It's like, look how petty and shitty revenge is.
Stupid it is. Look how self-destructive it is.
Unlike Old Boy, he gets out. That's the only thing. They give him a little bit of a happy ending by being like, he makes it.
Sure, I guess.
Yeah. But it's really unceremonious.
I would
it's really
never
like
dare to call Old Boy's ending happy. But...
No, not Old Boy. I'm talking about this movie.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, this movie has more of a happy ending. Old Boy, he pays dearly for his revenge. But like in this one, but like I guess the thing that like is the hit is almost like on his ego. Like it feels like his ego gets murdered at the end because like finally finding this client and realizing the client doesn't give a fuck about him. It's like it's kind of the perfect ending to this little revenge rampage as he's killed all the people, the workers. Like he's killed all the people who are just doing the job. And like, yeah, they did sign his death warrant more than the client ultimately when you realize how little the client knows. But it's just an interesting dynamic for him to like spare the client at the end, who is technically the person responsible, but like
he's the most responsible.
Realize it. But he didn't even realize it. You know, like it's just I don't know. I think that's.
I think he's punishing the intent. Maybe that's how he's because a lot of the movie obviously is him rationalizing what he does,
right?
And not just rationalizing what he does in terms of like the morality of what he does, but like rationalizing the dumb fucking shit he does.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I really enjoyed this movie, Dave. I don't have anything else to say.
I really enjoyed it too. Yeah, I just have to repeat. I wish I got to see it in theaters. I guess it did come out in theaters briefly.
Yeah,
I could have. I was in LA. I could have saw it, but like you know what I mean. Most people didn't get to see it in theaters. I wish I could have. David Fincher, you gotta hop off that Netflix ship as soon as possible. I mean, I know you don't have a decision. I can see like at the time signing up for Netflix probably seemed like a good idea, you know?
Yeah.
But it honestly seems like
money.
Yeah. It honestly it's just I think it's one of the worst decisions he made. Cuz
I think it's been that way for a few of the filmmakers too, like Scorsese.
Yeah. I don't mean it in the way because I saw some people were criticizing like he doesn't even make movies anymore because he's on Netflix. I don't mean it like that. You know, I think he makes movies.
I mean, like, it's not like J.J. Abrams who took his development deal and hasn't made a fucking thing in like 8 years.
Right. No, I mean like there's people who are like being really snobby of like that's not even cinema. And it's like, no, it's fucking cinema. It's more just like Netflix is clearly doesn't care about him and it feels like they barely advertise his stuff. And
it was part of
like
when they were
no physical media.
Yeah,
like it's just like Fincher has always been a guy where it's like I want the DVDs. I want all the behind the scenes. I want to see it all. That's the beauty of Fincher. He's such a meticulous filmmaker. I want to see it all. I want to see it on the big screen. I want a Blu-ray of this. And so like that's what I mean is like he's just not he doesn't feel like a Netflix director to me.
Yeah.
Like his stuff is not as disposable as Netflix makes their movies.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because Netflix wants to be like, we're high art, but then they can't. They can't be.
They just want Oscars. That's all.
Right. If they wanted to be high art, they would do, maybe there is going to be a physical release. I mean, is there a Mank Blu-ray?
I don't know. I know Scorsese had a deal worked with Netflix, and I'm sure Fincher probably had the juice to do something similar, but I'm not sure. I don't know the particulars of their respective deals.
Yeah.
But I believe I remember reading something where Scorsese was going to be able to get physical releases of The Irishman at some point.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, there's not much for a Mank Blu-ray. It looks like it says there's like on Blu-ray.com there's like a shitty basic. I don't know. Someone point me to a good Mank Blu-ray if there's one that exists.
Yeah.
I just don't. Yeah.
Gotta dive back into Mank.
Yeah, I gotta get my Mank on.
Yeah, where my Mank heads at?
Yeah. You know my Mank heads are out there. But yeah, I want like Criterion Collection of The Game. That's what I want for Fincher. Those Fight Club DVDs were great.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done.
Yeah, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. I was going to just ramble about Benjamin Button or something. Thanks for listening, everybody. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed, GAMEFULLY, unemployed. You go on there for $5 a month. You get access to exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys, all for $5 a month. We watch movies with our patrons as well every Friday night.
We do.
I don't think we watched a Fincher. It's hard to think of a Fincher to watch. The Game.
I know we've watched The Game.
We must have watched The Game. That's the most. That's the most like what I don't know, like mindlessly watchable movie.
Maybe we'll throw on Mank. I don't know. Everybody's favorite film, Mank.
McKnight.
Mank. We also have a Patreon. We also have a store. Head over to GameFullyUnemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs. You can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So slap your little Mank peepers onto that when you're not busy using them to watch Mank, of course. And leave us a review.
Mank. Yeah, review us.
Yeah.
Just review the word Mank.
Just even if it just says Mank over and over and over again.
Mank. First person to review us with the word Mank gets nothing.
I mean,
nothing
maybe,
at all.
Yeah, maybe we'll shout you out. I don't know.
Nope. Nothing.
Yep.
You get nothing.
You get nothing. You'll get absolutely
Do
nothing.
It.